I thought walking to my girlfriend's house at night was safe, until she asked me the question that froze my blood. Who's that man behind you? I had my first girlfriend. When I was 15, I had my first girlfriend, Casey. We lived in a quiet, upper-class neighborhood with peaceful streets, and she lived just 2 blocks away. I'd usually walk to her house at night. One Thursday during school break, I decided to visit her. It was late, but since I had no curfew, I didn't think twice. Halfway through my walk, I heard a noise behind me, like a bush rustling. I glanced back but didn't stop, only quickened my pace. A block later, a twig snapped. This time I stopped and turned around. Empty street, just rows of bushes separating the sidewalks from the houses. My pulse quickened. I walked faster until Casey's house was in sight, then footsteps echoed behind me, fast and light. I spun around. Nothing. I called Casey, my voice shaky, telling her I felt like someone was following me. She answered quickly and stayed on the line. As I walked past the bushes near her driveway, I saw her upstairs window. She waved at me while still on the phone. I waved back. Then Casey's voice trembled. "Who's that guy right behind you?" I froze, spun around, and saw a fully grown man crouched low, just 10 feet away. I screamed and bolted for Casey's door, pounding on it frantically. The man lunged, grabbed me in a headlock, but let go and ran into the darkness before the door flew open. Casey's mom yanked me inside, slammed the door, and hugged me as my heart pounded out of my chest. She immediately called the police, reporting a dangerous man in the area. That night, Casey's mom insisted I stay over. The next morning, she personally drove me home. I shot my window. It was a stormy night, the kind where rain batters the windows like pebbles and thunder rattles the walls. My family was scattered, Rents watching TV, sister gaming upstairs. I was in my room, lost in a movie, when a monstrous bang hit my window. I leapt up. Outside, blurred by rain, stood a man pounding on the glass, screaming something drowned by the storm. I cracked open the window just enough to hear him shout, "Let me in, I'm hurt." I screamed back over the rain, "Go to the front door," then slammed it shut. I ran to the living room to tell my dad. Seconds later, pounding echoed on our front door, urgent, desperate. Dad rushed to open it, but I stopped him. Something felt wrong. Right then, the phone rang. Caller ID showed our next-door neighbor. Dad answered, then froze. "No way." He hung up, face pale, and whispered, "Stay away from the door." He peeked through the window, then stiffened. On our porch, the same man crouched low, pounding and shouting for help, clutching a massive, sharpened axe. Dad shouted through the door, "Leave now, police are coming." The man didn't stop until Dad grabbed the phone again and called 911. By the time cops arrived, the man had vanished. Days later, the local paper revealed he'd been roaming the streets, breaking into sheds and threatening homeowners with stolen tools. I heard my mom. I was a young kid watching my favorite cartoon in the living room when I heard my mom's voice calling from the basement. I yelled back, "What?" But she didn't reply. A moment later, her voice called again. Curious, I walked to the dark basement stairs and shouted, "Mom?" Silence. She wasn't there. I turned to leave when, chillingly, her voice called again from the pitch-black basement. Terror shot through me. I ran upstairs crying, just as my real mom came running down from upstairs. I sobbed, explaining something was calling me from below that sounded exactly like her. She swore she hadn't called me. To calm me, she went downstairs, but I couldn't shake the dread, Evis. And as a kid, I knew I heard what I heard. My grandpa's peaceful evening walk turned into a fight for his life when a stranger silently stalked him in the woods. The night. My grandpa told me this chilling tale from years ago. On his farm, he'd walk his small Boston Terrier, Sherry, every evening along a dirt trail by the woods. One sunset, he passed a hooded stranger. Sherry barked wildly, tugging at her leash. Grandpa greeted the man, no response. They walked on, but Sherry kept glancing back, barking. Moments later, Grandpa turned and saw the stranger lurking behind a tree, watching him. Heart racing, Grandpa picked up the pace. Leaves crunched behind him. Before he could react, a gloved hand clamped over his mouth and nose, suffocating him. Sherry barked furiously, biting at the attacker. Struggling, Grandpa managed to pull out pepper spray and unleashed it in a panic. The man screamed, releasing him. Grandpa ran as fast as his old legs allowed, escaping home. Fakehead. I grew up in a rough LA neighborhood controlled by the Crips. At 12, my best friend Stevie D and I often rode bikes around at night. One evening we approached a long-abandoned house when Stevie froze. "Look at the window." Peering closer, we saw a human face staring out between the curtains, unmoving, lifeless. We nervously crept to the driveway. Closer inspection revealed it wasn't moving at all. We assumed it was a prank, maybe a fake head. Curious and reckless, we stashed our bikes and slipped into the unlocked back door. Inside, the house was dark and stank of rot. We reached the living room where the fake head rested on the windowsill. Stevie picked it up. I heard his scream first, then saw the truth. It wasn't a prop. The head was heavy, warm, and bleeding. Two loud cracks came from upstairs like footsteps. Without thinking, we bolted, bikes flying down the street. Later, word spread. The head belonged to a Crips victim, P. Laced there as a brutal gang message, and whoever put it there was likely still inside when we were. Clorox. One late night in our rural home, a man knocked on the door, claiming he was starting a business and handed Mom a Clorox sample. Odd for 9 p.m., but what chilled us was his van. Inside, 5 men sat silently. Mom grew uneasy, tossed the container outside, and shouted for them to leave, pretending she was calling police. They sped off into the night. We later learned this same group had been targeting rural homes for robberies. That night, Mom's quick thinking saved us. Backcountry skiing. I'm an adrenaline junkie. Mountain climbing, scuba diving, skiing. Last year, my friend Q and I went deep into the wilderness for backcountry skiing. We set up camp and hit the slopes. At one point, we got separated. While searching, I met a man with an orange backpack and skis, claiming he and his wife were camping nearby. I offered to guide him to our site. On the hike, I radioed Q but only got static. As we reached camp, I asked, "Where's your wife?" The man didn't answer. He moved closer, fast. Something felt off. I suddenly realized his gear. It belonged to Q. Panic surged. I dove into the tent, grabbing my flare gun. The man grabbed my leg, plunging a knife deep into it, pain searing like fire. I screamed, spun, and aimed the flare gun. He backed off, hands raised, then fled into the woods. I called emergency services. Hours later, a rescue helicopter arrived. Using my flare, they found Q unconscious on a snowy hill, also stabbed and robbed. We both survived, but that trip left scars, physical and psychological, that no amount of adrenaline can erase.